Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. If you have a few moments that you'd like to spend joining me in a world that doesn't exist, then by all means do, because I'll be talking about some of the Witcher lore again. So today we're going to be taking a look at a pretty iconic creature from the game, one that's been seen at the heels of the dreaded Wild Hunt. These are the Hounds that follow the riders into battle and act as the minions that do the bulk of the damage taking. Almost as if to play the part of a pawn inside of a chess game, they are solely to be used and to be sacrificed if necessary. They are the weakest members to the Wild Hunt, but can also be the most powerful due to their numbers, overwhelming enemies very quickly, acting largely animalistically, but still retaining enough intelligence and discipline to follow their master's commands. Now, that's all very interesting, but one of the first questions I had when seeing these things was where do they come from and how are they made? Now it's very important just to mention first that these creatures are classified under the class of an Elementa, which is actually kind of strange because they seem to be a creature of flesh but at the same time are made from a material like ice, which is strange because most Elementa tend to be only one thing, hence the class name Elementa meaning one of the four elements of either fire, water, earth and air. The Hounds seemingly fall somewhere in the middle. Just by looking at them you can see that they're clearly not born from anything we know. Some people say they're created using magic ice crystals, which is pretty fantastic even for The Witcher. The design confuses me a little bit because they're obviously organic, they obviously look like animals, which suggests they function like animals, meaning that they'd need to feed, to defecate, and just do what animals do. The weird part is that most Elementa, again those being the creatures that are derived from a single element, do not function like this. Most of them actually just remain lifeless until needed or triggered to be woken. So if we were to theorize a little bit, you could probably say that since these are beings from another world, they simply work differently. You could also suggest that maybe they were once animals that then had an element applied to it. Or you could just say that CDPR designed them to make them look cool without worrying how they'd actually function, which is probably what happened. But the idea that these were once creatures bonded to an element is probably one of the coolest theories I could come up with because it would explain a lot about them physically and in the way that they act like furious animals. Either way, we're not really too sure how they were born into the world and how they came to be a part of the universe physically and just in the way they function, but all that we do know is that they were created using some form of magic and then became the ravenous hounds of the Wild Hunt. Interestingly enough, these are actually one of the monsters that we know very little about. From the art books to the RPG manual to the wiki to the in-game books, there's hardly anything to say at all, making them one of the most mysterious beings in the Witcherverse. And I realise that doesn't really mean much considering they play such a small role, but it would still be interesting to know their backstory and their origin. Obviously they fight very viciously with their teeth and claws, and they are very animalistic like I said before, but they can also use Elementa types of magic, meaning they can spawn out the giant ice crystals around them to knock back enemies and do the sort of things that most Elementa are capable of, because the rock Elementa can also do a rock barrier around him, and he can also spawn rocks that will knock people back inside of his perimeter. They're basically area of effect, is that the right word? Area of effect damage, essentially, so yeah. But most Elementa tend to be very lumbering and very slow, and they're more like giant things built from the material that they encompass, which makes them automatically take on the properties of it. Like the rocks, they're very slow because they're so heavy. The fire, they're all just massive monsters that are constructed and put together as big kind of lumps, which is really cool in terms of like it makes sense from what they're designed from. But maybe the Wild Hunt and whoever made the Hounds, maybe they found a way to make them more sophisticated. So for instance, they designed these particular Elementa to be looking and acting like real animals in order to make sure that they could fight like animals and have more flexibility in terms of what they do and the way they actually do act and the way they take on their enemies. And that would make more sense as to why they look like animals as opposed to why they're not the same as most Elementa are. So maybe it's just an advanced form of magic and the construction of Elementa, which would make a lot more sense considering it's from an entirely different world that likely has a lot more access to more powerful magic than the world of The Witcher. As always everyone, thank you very much for watching. I'm very sorry this video is so short, but I've been incredibly sick recently and I do not have the energy to make anything longer, and I already had the script halfway finished, so I'll make up for it next video. And thank you to everyone again for watching, and what was I going to say? There was something I wanted to say, but I don't remember what it was. Oh yeah, if any of you are interested, then you can join the Discord channel, and that's where things happen. Oh, this publicity is the best publicity. But until the next one, this has been OK Gov Bear, and you'll go and have a very, very, very good day. Pumpernickel.